Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the WKYC High School Football Game of the Week Preview Show. I'm Dave DiNatale along with Tyler Carey as we make our way towards week number 7, and we are ready to announce our Game of the Week, our WKYC.com Game of the Week. TC, another week where I think I really felt good about the games we put down there, and the fans early often voted, and this one was really no contest. I think we pretty much knew Monday where we were going, and
no doubt.
I'm looking forward to this one. 3
great options, Dino. All county matchups.
Yep.
For all 3 of them, we had one all-Summit County matchup, Hudson hosting Nordonia,
yep,
an all-Cuyahoga County matchup, West Side actually, Bay hosting North Olmsted. But this week we are headed to Lake County, Perry to be exact. This kind of had a surge in votes on Monday, ended up being the winner. The Pirates will be playing. They having a pretty good year. Oh, by the way, they're going to be hosting the unbeaten, 3-time defending state champion Kirtland Hornets, possessors of one of the longest winning streaks in the country.
Yes. That's what is awaiting, but this is what, listen, if you're Perry, you say, they're not always on our schedule. I mean, Kirtland's kind of had to adjust their schedule here over the last couple of years. Last year they played Solon, and I remember being out for that game, and that was a big opportunity to maybe Solon could break the streak. Well, they couldn't do it. Now Perry's going to get their opportunity. You mentioned they're off to a good start. The only blemish was what, Kenston, right?
Yeah, to Kenston at full strength.
Yes.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But really, and they only lost by 5 points. They've beaten some pretty good teams here in the CVC. They haven't lost a CVC game, Dino, since 2015.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is they have not played Kirtland. They've been in different divisions. Now there's been some reconfiguring. They're both in the Chagrin division. This is Perry's chance to really show what they're made of. I know we just kind of think, Kirtland's just going to blow through the regular season on into the playoffs. You got to think they're going to be favored here, but this is probably, if they're ever going to lose a regular season game, this could be it.
Yeah, this is a home game for Perry. It's a great atmosphere. If you've not been up there to that stadium before, it's, last year we had our first experience up there when Perry played Riverside, and it's a great atmosphere. I'm looking forward to, the first day of October. It's really going to, it's supposed to be still, our friends over in the weather department over to across from us continue to do a fantastic job getting us nice weather on Friday nights, but this should be fun. I mean, you know what you're getting with Tiger Laverty and the Hornets, right? I mean, you're going to, it's much like what we saw last week with Chardon. You're going to get a big dose of wing tee. You're going to get a lot of running and misdirection and ball handling, which, really crosses up defenses, fans, and play-by-play announcers. But, you know what you're going to get. It's the same thing, but nobody can stop it. Nobody has stopped it to this point. As you mentioned, one of the country's longest winning streaks. Perry, I'm very intrigued because on the flip side, you started to see last year what they were trying to do, and they were a little bit shorthanded in that game. Their quarterback was hurt, I can remember. I'm excited to see how this program has progressed in a year.
Well, let's start on the Kirtland side. You mentioned 46-game winning streak. 3 state championships in a row. Tiger Laverty just continues to take care of business over there. We saw it last week against Chagrin Falls, 42-6 victory. Mason Russ, he's probably their top running back. Also, the homecoming king had more than 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. The defense held Chagrin Falls to only 38 yards of offense, had a late garbage touchdown to cost them a shutout. They haven't lost a CVC game since 2016. That was when Cuyahoga Heights was still in their division, and that Heights team actually went to the state championship game. And then for Perry, last week in their victory, only 33 plays on offense, 1 first down in the first half, and yet they were up 35-0, rolled to a 49-0 win. They averaged 8.6 yards per play of those 33 plays. Oh, by the way, the defense is pretty good too. Javon Isaacs, a 77-yard pick return for a touchdown. These are both very well-rounded teams. And again, when you talk about that only blemish for the Pirates being to a Division III school in Kenston that was, as we said, at full strength, we know a very good team when they have all their players. Tiger Laverty's not going to be looking past this Perry team.
No way. This is, like you said, now that we're starting to conferences and divisions. I feel like finally, and last year was so difficult because of COVID. Everybody's starting to kind of figure out now who we're going to be playing year in and year out. And I'm a big believer, like once you get a conference, let's stay there. let's have some continuity. This could be the makings of a really good local rivalry. And, Kirtland, because, for a while they were in Division 6 and then in Division 5, they had to play in the smaller school divisions and, sometimes go out of state to play. I love that they're going to get a chance to play Chardon Falls. Now they get to play Perry. It's good for the fans. I think it's good for rivalries. So I think it's going to be fun. And I don't think, to your point, I don't think Tiger Laverty's going to have his team looking past this. This is a big game for them. Absolutely not.
As you mentioned, all Lake County matchup. I do have a feeling that there's going to be no love lost between these two teams.
No.
And it's going to be fun to see.
No, and real quick, before we get to Tyler's top five, for those who say, okay, guys, you're hyping up this game, it's Kirtland Perry. We were just here a week ago, and you guys were hyping up Chardon Kenston, and what happened?
Boy.
That was two things to take away real quick from Chardon Kenston, and you brought up one. I think I don't put asterisks or that kind of thing because, Chardon is really, really good, and they're defending their state championship, and they look great, especially on the defensive side. They played brilliantly. They were opportunistic, loved the way they played. But let's mention, Kenston's without their best player, tight end Ryan Miller, and their quarterback, Nico Giorgio, which meant they really couldn't throw the football much. J.P. Germano really a yeoman's effort playing the Wildcat, and he could throw it a little bit, but he's a starting wide receiver / safety. He's not a quarterback. And I thought he availed himself as well as he could, but that was a Kenston team missing a big part of themselves. Now, they still couldn't shut down or had difficulty shutting down Chardon's running game. The fact that Chardon also hit Sulka, Henry to Sulka for the long touchdown. There were other things going on, but just as a sidebar from that game. And number one, Kenston's going to be a playoff team, and number two, if they get all their guys back, they're going to be a much tougher out than what we saw Friday night.
Well, you did mention it. It hurts to be without your starting quarterback, although I do think J.P. Germano is better than he looked in that game.
His stats the previous 2 weeks would back that up.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, Kenston could have maybe hung around in this game for a little bit longer had they hung on to the football.
Yes.
4 turnovers, all in the first half, a fumble return by Brody Dotson for a touchdown, 2 interceptions, another fumble down by the goal line.
That set up a score.
It really seemed like in the blink of an eye, it went from 7-0 to 35-0. Heath Betchik had a punt return for a touchdown. I mentioned this to you Friday night. I think Chardon really made themselves heard in the fact that, okay, we've heard everyone say, oh, we've lost all these starters on defense. We had our year last year. Now this could be Aurora's year. They're here, and they're here to stay.
That was a message sender.
You're going to have to steal that region from them if you're going to get to the state semifinals this year.
There's no question. I felt just the vibe in that stadium, and I didn't get a chance. I was disappointed to get a chance to talk to Mitch Hewitt after the game. He was, mobbed with people. But you could just kind of sense this was a message game, not only to their rival Kenston that, look, we still have your number. This was a message to Aurora. This was a message to Streetsboro or anybody else, New Philadelphia, who they were going to play this coming week, anybody else in Region 9 and in Division 3 in the state that, look, if you want the state championship from us, you're going to have to come take it because there's not a letdown in what we're trying to do this year. And I thought that was that message was delivered and brought home quite effectively.
A fantastic effort by the Hilltoppers. Okay, let's get to Tyler's top 5.
Yes.
Now, I will note it is the same top five teams as last week, but there has been some rearranging, partly because of the game we just talked about, Chardon Kenston. But we'll start with number 5, Benedictine. Just keeps on rolling. A very solid 38-20 win over Boardman. C.J. Yarborough, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns. We talked about how he was going to have some big shoes to fill replacing Ronnie Schultz. Well, he's done it masterfully. Brandon Boyd Jr., 158 yards on the ground, a couple of scores. Oh, by the way, Darrell Bedingfield Jr., the Toledo commit, a 71-yard interception return for a touchdown. Dino, I think there's been a changing of the guard of those Division II Catholic schools a little bit, and Benedictine seems to have taken it and run with it.
At this point, now they're going to play Hope in a little later on this year, but I'm with you. I think right now, and I think there's I almost feel like there's even a sea change in Division II, as a whole.
Totally
we were
agree.
talking about that towards the end of the game. We had a little bit of time towards the end. I feel like there's starting to see a sea change into who normally is the elite in Division II and who may be this year. I think Benedictine is. By the way, I don't think there's a better defensive player in this area than Bedingfield.
No doubt. Bengals going to be at Berkshire next week. Number 4, we mentioned him briefly earlier, the Aurora Greenmen. Now, they haven't played a lot of very good teams this year. Let's just be honest. They did beat St. Vincent St. Mary.
That's their best win, I think you and I would agree, to this point.
Totally agree with that. Now, they did play Talmadge last week, and we thought, okay, maybe on the road could be a little bit of a test. Well, it certainly didn't look like it. The Greenmen roll 42-14. Alex Moore threw just 12 passes, completed 8 of them for 252 and 3 tutties. 2 to Ryan Weber, who had only 3 catches for 125 yards. Aiden Henderson, 160 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, a very solid defensive effort in the first half as well, which, of course, Bob Mahalik was hyping up after the game.
I was just saying, I can't believe they gave up 14 points. But Talmadge
kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah, Talmadge is still, they still can move the football and score points. But, yeah, that defense is still playing, to me, at an awfully high level right now. And that's what separates, I think, Aurora, this year's team, why we think they're an elite team. They've always had offensive weapons, but when they can really shut the opposition down the way they've been doing it, it's awfully tough to beat them.
And Aurora heads to Kent Roosevelt next week before they get Kent Roosevelt at home next week before 2 very tough road tests against Barberton and Highland. So that will be interesting to watch.
Would imagine you might get to vote on one or the other game.
Hint, hint.
Dropping.
All right, number 3, we just talked about him a lot. The Chardon Hilltoppers are shooting up in the rankings, and I think they've earned it. As we mentioned, 49-0 win over Kenston. It was 42-0 at the half. We talked about the running game, the big long pass to Sulka, Fetchik with the punt return, Dotson with the fumble return. Kenston just 54 yards of offense in the entire game. They get a little bit of a test this week on the road against New Philadelphia, but that was a team that has been good in the past, but they beat up in the playoffs last year. We actually covered that game as our game of the week.
31-0 last year in the playoffs. Our last 2, I was joking with Doug Snyder, the athletic director at Chardon, as we were leaving. He said, "Oh, yeah, you're a good luck charm." The last 2 games we've done at Chardon Memorial Stadium, the Hilltoppers have outscored the opposition 80-0. They like when we're there.
Yes.
I can't explain it. But by the way, the field, beautiful at the stadium. New scoreboard, outstanding.
Crowd was great.
Love that. It really is one of the best atmospheres anywhere for high school football. But yeah, back to your point. They got to go on the road. It's a long trip to New Philadelphia. It's not an easy ride.
No kidding. It's why we haven't really covered them yet.
So this will be interesting. But, Mitch Hewitt will have the guys ready to go. They're a tough out. They're going to be a tough out. It'll be interesting to see if New Philadelphia can, at the very least, have more of an offensive, output and surge than they did in that playoff game.
I have a feeling our game of the week has not seen the last of the Chardon Hilltoppers.
Yeah, I wouldn't
this
think
year.
so.
Let's keep that in mind as we go forward. All right, number 2 and number 1, I think most people know who they are, but we'll start with number 2, Medina. A ho-hum 40-0 win over Euclid. The Panthers 0-6. A tough year with Jeff Rotsky going to VASJ. Drew Aller had a bit of a down game, only 225 yards and 3 touchdowns. But now Medina gets a bit of a test, which is not quite what we thought it would be when the year started. They're going to go play Mentor. Now, this game is going to be on national television, ESPN2 Friday night. You can bet we're going to be keeping an eye on that score, but Mentor is reeling. 3 out of the last 4 games, losses. Yeah. The last one on Friday night to Brunswick, 16-14 on a Hail Mary by Ethan Fritz. A great effort by the Blue Devils, but the big thing for the Cardinals, They are now down to their third-string quarterback. Brendan Baroni is now in there. We know Jacob Snow went down. Now their backup is down after hurting his ankle. It's going to be a tall task for Mentor to beat Medina this week. I know you got to think Matt Gray is probably just looking forward to the playoffs at this point, but kind of tough to see Mentor in this position when they're at a 500 record.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we talked about. It's what I'm sure the folks in Kenston are saying, yeah, we're going through the same issues here. When you design your offense around a particular quarterback skill set and then that guy isn't able to play, and then, okay, well, no problem, we throw the backup in there, and now he can't play. A lot of times then you're going to a freshman in a lot of cases, or maybe a sophomore to play, and they're not as familiar with the offense. They're probably more familiar with playing in the JV. You know, it's just different. And the thing with this game with Medina for Mentor is that, you know, whenever you play against Larry Laird's team, your goal is to keep them off the field. I mean, you've got to be able to ground clock, and you've got to be able to play keep away, because you know when the Medina gets on the field, they score quickly. So, you know, whether they'll try to do a wrinkle, maybe use a wildcat, something like that, I don't know. The thing that, again, stands out to me about Medina and makes me believe that they are really a state championship contender, the 0, you said that 40-0 game against Euclid. Their defense is really playing well. And that's something that I think coming into this year, we knew Aller and we knew all the weapons he has around him. But the fact is they're dominating people on the defensive side. And really, to me, it started in the second half of that Stowe game, and they haven't looked back from that point.
Well, we saw it, how they pretty much rendered Bainbridge and Preston, those two big playmakers from Stowe, pretty much obsolete, it seemed, in that game. That they could not move the ball at all, and they were able to come back, and it was 38-27 was the final score. It felt like it was more than that.
Yes, I would agree.
And I think you and I talked about it that night. That was really when Medina made it known, like, all right, last year was not a fluke. We are here. We are a state title contender, and we are going to be a tough out once November comes around.
But this is going to be, it'll be fun and interesting to see how both these teams respond. You know, there's Friday Night Lights, and then there's Friday Night Lights with national TV involved in it. You know, do you have an issue with long snapping? You get nervous. Just little things, catching punts, catching, just all those fundamentals. Sometimes they go by the wayside under the bright lights. I'll be interested to see how clean this game is between the two teams.
I know Mentor's down this year, and who knows, maybe they can get healthy and go on a run in the playoffs, but it's still Mentor.
Yeah.
And you know they're going to be throwing everything they have.
And it's still Osborne, and it's still Jerome T. Osborne Stadium. That's a great atmosphere. It's a great home field atmosphere for the Cardinals.
Certainly can't wait. All right, number one, as you would imagine, it's the team that Medina upset in last year's playoffs, and that would be St. Edward. A 58-0 win over Beacon Hill Homeschool out of Virginia, not Bishop Sycamore.
Nope.
Let's not get into the particulars of that, but suffice to say, the starters barely played in this game. They pretty much came out in the first half. Danny Inovich had 2 TDs in the first quarter. It was 44-0 Eagles at halftime. They rolled to a win. But now it gets interesting. Yep. They welcome their arch rivals into Lakewood, St. Ignatius, who is 4-2 and starting to gain some momentum.
We talked about it with, beating Hoban just kind of felt like it's a chance to turn everything around for them for this season. And boy, Chuck Kyle will have them ready to go. It's going to be an amazing game. Get there early. Parking at Lakewood Stadium. There's many things I love about Lakewood Stadium. Trying to figure out where to park if you're a fan is not necessarily one of them. Find it near a street as close as you can to Bunts, and make your way over. It's going to be a great atmosphere. Ignatius will be ready. They'll be playing at a high level. This is going to be a tough test for St. Edward. And I know they took care of Mentor earlier this year and did so pretty handily. But to me, this is going to be their toughest test to this point, because you're playing your rival, and your rival is playing on a roll right now. So this will be fun. I think I wish this were Week 10 like everybody else, because I always felt like that's the way it should be. But Week 7, okay, fine, let's play.
Every year it seems like this game goes down to the final minutes, And we know St. Edward has been an absolute machine this year. It's why they're number one, but don't look now. I think I mentioned it last week. St. Ignatius, after a couple of ho-hum years, looks like they might be back. And if they can get a win over St. Edward, look out. You're going to start talking about them as a state championship contender again this year.
Absolutely. 2 losses or not, then you got to start thinking about them for Tyler's top 5. And
Their last state championship, they had 2 losses. I remember they just kind of randomly, I think Mentor was at the top of the rankings that year, Solon, and then there were a couple of upsets, and then just randomly St. Ignatius wins another state championship.
Snuck up on everybody, and next thing you know, Chuck Kyle's got another state championship. So we'll be interested to talk about that one next week. We'll wait and see how the things play out here between St. Ignatius and St. Edward, the Wildcats and the Eagles. But for our purposes, Friday night, our game of the week for week number 7, again, taking us up to Lake County, we will see Kirtland at Perry. We'll join you for the pregame at 6:50. As this is gonna be fun. Whenever you get a chance to see 2 backyard teams roll it out, you know, one of the best traditions and the best programs in all of Ohio, if not the country, against a team that thinks it's their time to move up. We'll see what happens.
It'll be fun. I cannot wait for this one.
All right, for Tyler Carey, I'm Dave Tinasali. See you on Friday night at Perry. Thanks for watching the WKYC.com High School Football Game of the Week preview show.